Okay, let us start now.
Greetings to one and all from CSIR National Physical Laboratory, India. Today we are here with the curtain raiser event for India International Science Festival, which is to be held from December 22 to 25, 2020. And for this event, today we have with us Dr. D.K. Aswal, Director CSIR National Physical Laboratory, and Professor Arun K. Grover as chief guest for the event. Professor Grover is chairman of Research Council of CSIR NPL. He has been former Vice Chancellor of Punjab University. He has a very, very long and impressive academic career, which was mostly at TIFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. He has been a senior professor there before joining as Vice Chancellor Punjab University. He is a great visionary and is a great communicator of science. He has great expertise in history of science, and it would be a pleasure to recall science history with him today. We will be inviting him as we have invited him as chief guest because we thought nobody else could fit better than him for popularization of science because of his magical powers to engage the audience on these subjects. So with this, first of all, I would just tell what is this year's event. You can go to this website, which is given link here, scienceindiafest.org at home, IISF 2020. And for registration of the event, you have to click register. And then for whom this is there and for what is the aim of IISF, that is India International Science Festival. Like any other festival, this is a festival which is to be celebrated across by all audience. The aim is to promote science and technology in, with additional aims of engaging the public with science, that is popularization of science, to celebrate the joy of science and to showcase how science, technology, engineering and mathematics, that is STEM, provides the solution to improve our lives. The link I am repeating again, there you can register, you all can register, and events encompasses a lot of events. You can visit the website and see. For example, for industry, we have industry conclave. For young scientists, we have young scientist conference. We have traditional crafts and artisan meet and expo. New age technology showcase is there. Mega science technology industry expo is there. Similarly, we have women scientist entrepreneurs conclave, agriculture conclave, industry academia conclave, science diplomacy, that is policy making, waste management. So it encompasses all the problems that are being faced by the society, how to deal with them. It encompasses the joy of science of scientists and students. So in a way, it is for everybody, including students, scientists, teachers, industry, and we can say general public at large. So I urge you all to register for Science Festival, and it is being organized by Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth, Vigyan Bharati, Department of Science and Technology, and many more organizations are supporting. But this year, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research is spearheading this year's event. So with this, I request you all to be able to register this event here. And with this, I would first invite Dr. D.K. Aswal, Director CSIR NPL, for introducing the history of Science Festival, that is India International Science Festival. He is one of the persons who had hosted the second India International Science Festival, where when NPL had this responsibility. So I think with let's hear from Dr. D.K. Aswal. Dr. D.K. Aswal, please.
Namaskar. I am Dinesh Aswal, Director, National Physical Laboratory. India International Science Festival is a flagship program of this government led by Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji and Dr. Harshvardhan, the Minister of Science and Technology, as well as the Ministry of Health. Both these leaders, they have been visionary in terms of getting new ideas to make common public aware that what scientific institutions are doing and how the research and development and the technology, the innovation that is done in the various laboratories across the country are showcased to the common people. In this direction, the IISF was started by Department of Science and Technology, CSIR, DBT, and Ministry of Earth Sciences in 2015. The first one was held at IIT Delhi in 2015, and I was lucky to take the leadership for organizing the IISF 2016. It was a Herculean task, and we have done many new things in this IISF 2016. It encompasses students, farmers, professionals, doctors, policymakers, almost everybody. We had more than 10,000 participants, registered participants, and several lakhs of visitors at our CSIR National Physical Laboratory campus. Of course, we deal with the Young Scientist Conclave, but the one which I started in this IISF 2016 was the Student Science Village. Under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Harshvardhan, we requested Member of Parliament to send or nominate 6 students and 1 teacher from their adopted village. And it was so happy that most of the Member of Parliament, they responded this call, and we got roughly few thousands of students, roughly 3,000 students studying in 9th and 11th standards from all over the country, from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari and northeast to the Gujarat. So it was from all the states. Now, during that 5 days stay at NPL, we showed them the essence of National Physical Laboratory, which is the measurement, how SI units are so important, how we get SI units, and how accurate and precise measurements are the backbone of science, academia, industry, and even civil society. We also had a mega science expo in which all leading organizations of the country like DAE, DRDO, ISRO, ICMR, CSIR, they all exhibited their devices, products. In addition, we had the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan stall, as well as the stalls from all science and technology councils of all the 28 states. We also had the many cultural programs related to science, and we also had the International Science Film Festival. For the first time, we also dressed 550 young students in the dress of Einstein. So the Science Festival is really a festival where we really enjoy the way we enjoy our music and the dance. So this Science Festival gives you a feel that this science is not a boring subject. The science is a subject which need to be enjoyed. And when I was discussing with these young boys who came across the country, they really enjoyed it. So each year, the third year, it was celebrated in Chennai, then in Lucknow, and last year it was done in Calcutta. This year, because of the pandemic, we can't get together, but this pandemic has given us another media, that is a virtual media. And this year, 2016 IISF is being conducted by CSIR NISTAT under the leadership of Dr. Ranjana Agrawal. From 22 to 25 December 2020, we will have a variety of functions, meetings, discussions organized virtually on internet. As Dr. Reena Sharma already suggested, that please go and log on to the IISF 2020 and enjoy the various facets of the science. See how our science is growing. See how we are tackling the problem of the common people. And therefore, the contribution from each of us towards this science festival as well as to contribute to the nation is very, very important. Now, in order to give a flavor of science history, we have organized this curtain raiser, and we'll request Professor Grover, who is our chairman of Research Council of National Physical Laboratory, to give his views on the history of science, how science evolved. And when I was conducting this ISF 2016 at NPL, Professor Bhatkar, in his statement made a statement: the birthplace of Indian science post-independence is the National Physical Laboratory. Because since this lab was inaugurated on 4th January 1947, and most of the people, scientists across the country, they used to assemble at NPL and discuss. So most of the planning of the DAE, TFR, or many other places where Homi Jahangir Bhabha, Raja Ramanna, all they visited here and they discussed. National Physical Laboratory also ensures the accurate measurement, not only for the academia, for industry, as well as for international trade also, as well as for policy making. But pre-independence, how the science grew up, and the two links, the modern science, which is communicated by the government through this platform called IISF, and in the pre-independence era, how our great science like C.V. Raman, Dr. K.S. Krishnan, Meghnad Saha, how Bhatnagar, Homi Jahangir Bhabha, how they brought the science from pre-independence, and the bridging of the two, the history and the current one and the future, we have requested none other than a great personality known as Professor Arun K. Grover. So Professor Grover, welcome, and please enlighten the masses about the history of science as well as about the IISF, which is jointly organized between the Government of India as well as Vigyan Bharati. The Vigyan Bharati is the NGO who connects the laboratory work to the masses. So Professor Grover, please.
Thank you very much. I consider it an honor to be asked to be a part of 6th India International Science Festival 2020, which is being organized on behalf of CSIR, National Institute of Science, Technology and Development Studies, known as NISTADS, New Delhi. This is in partnership with Science and Technology Ministries of Government of India and an NGO named Vigyan Bharati, acronym as VIBHA. VIBHA today permeates all across India. It had started in a small way at Bangalore at one time, but VIBHA is there everywhere in India today. I have participated in the events organized by VIBHA at Chandigarh. However, today is the first occasion that I am participating in IISF, which has an all India reach. I am excited about it because it gives me an opportunity to talk to the students in schools and colleges all across India. I'm very happy that this event is particularly co-hosted by National Physical Laboratory, which, as Dr. Dinesh Aswal just told us, is the premier national lab of India. This lab would be completing 75 years on January 4, 2021, and we are anticipating and expecting that Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, would be with us physically on that day. The annual India International Science Festival, INDIES, is one of the many initiatives set in motion during the era of our present Prime Minister. The first event, as we just heard from Dr. Dinesh Aswal, was held in December 2015 at IIT Delhi. IISF events are hosted to disseminate achievements of Indian scientists and technologists amongst students, teachers, parents of the students, innovators, craftsmen, farmers, and members of the general public. I understand that the theme of IISF 2020 is Science in Self-Reliant India and Global Welfare. And it is very relevant, particularly in the pandemic time, and also when India is facing lots of challenges to its security and defense needs. It is serendipity that the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research was created in British India when the British faced the emergent need to make India self-reliant as the Second World War engulfed Europe. The British needed the help of Indians in numerous ways during the war. The industrialization of India became a priority for them from 1939 onwards. The industrialization of the country also emerged as a priority for all of us. By us, I mean all the scientists and the teachers in the universities of India. As the arrival of industrial goods from UK and Europe got choked, and Indian raw materials also could not reach Europe because of blockade in the sea routes. So in 1939, the government of India requisitioned the services of a university professor, namely Dr. Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar from University of Punjab at Lahore, to start creating Board of Scientific and Industrial Research. The Indian university professors had been asking for the creation of a CSIR-like entity in India. British had created a CSIR for themselves in 1915, just before the start of the First World War, but they did not permit that to happen in India. Only when they faced the second challenge of a Second World War, they felt the need of bringing in industries in India. Until then, they were encouraging scientific research, but only in the field of agriculture, because they felt that India is an agricultural economy. So if the farmers' income enhances, maybe they will seek the use of more industrial goods, and that would come from England. So promoting agricultural research was in their interest to promote themselves as a trading nation. But all that became a problem when the Second World War arrived, because this challenge was much bigger than what they had faced during the First World War. So Bhatnagar's lab at Lahore was taken over for defense research, and Bhatnagar himself was moved to Calcutta to another laboratory called National Test House in Calcutta. And he was asked to galvanize the Indian scientists spread across the universities of India to aid the scientific research for defense purposes, as well as they should try to aim for new innovations which can kickstart new industries in India. Industries for the Indians in India, as well as industries which will produce goods which are needed in the war. So after that, Bhatnagar was moved to Calcutta. The governor of Punjab, while addressing the Northern India Chamber of Commerce on the auspicious day of Baisakhi, that is April 13, 1940, stated, and I quote, "There is every reason to suppose that the war will give an immense fillip to Indian industry. There will be double stimulus. The great demand for industrial products created by the war will be the direct incentive to the existing industries, while the difficulty of obtaining many of the articles we are importing before will stimulate the search for substitutes on ways and means of producing them in India." End of the quote. So this, I believe, is like the present day call, made in India or vocal for local. So you realize only when you face challenges, such feelings come in, that we have to be independent, self-reliant, and so on. So in India, for the first time, even the British Indian government felt that these things should happen in India. And for that, they didn't have any civil servant to do this, nor did they have any of their professors who were English on origin and serving in various universities. They didn't have a person of that stature or that caliber. They had to reach out to Indian professors to do so. So Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar was like a child prodigy, and he was a born innovator. He had provided import substitution while being a college student, and which had earned him a handsome amount of rupees 150 during the first war. This 100 years ago, he, as a intermediate student, he had an import substitution for which he got 150 rupees. He had also written a scientific paper while being a student of intermediate class. So he did graduation, he did post-graduation from Lahore, and his research talent was recognized by a science teacher of Government College Lahore, namely Professor Ruchiram Sani, who arranged a scholarship for him from Dayal Singh Majithia Trust, the same Dayal Singh Majithia who had started the newspaper, the Tribune, actually to compete with an English newspaper which used to come out, Civil and Military Gazette, which used to come out from Lahore. So Dayal Singh Majithia started Tribune at Lahore, and Lokmanya Tilak started the two newspapers, one in Marathi and one in English from Pune. This is, you can understand this is 19th century. 1882 is the year when these things happen. So Dr. Bhatnagar went abroad. He completed his period in just 2 years and did a wonderful research. And he was immediately invited by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya in his newly established University of Banaras Hindu University as a research professor, just like C.V. Raman was a research professor at Calcutta at the Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. C.V. Raman was a civil servant in Calcutta, and he also, was a kind of a child prodigy. He also had written research papers while being a BSc student at Madras. Long story, but he did not join. He could not go abroad and pursue his passion for science. He became a civil servant, and his first posting was in Calcutta. And near his house, he discovered the Indian Association of Cultivation of Science, an NGO-like entity like Vibha is today. So there was this Indian Association of Cultivation of Science, established in the year 1876 by a medical doctor, Dr. Mahendra Lal Sarkar. Why medical doctor? Because the science was not taught in the colleges and universities of India as a separate subject in the beginning. See, Indian education system from school to college got considered in the form of an education policy only from 1854 onwards. In the background of this, the three universities came up at Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. And in these three universities, they were just affiliating universities which affiliated colleges and conducted exams. So the first exam that they conducted was the end of the school exam, which was given the name of a college entrance exam. So any student who wants to go from school to the college has to write a college entrance exam. So that enabled you to go to a college. So the school boards came up much later, 50 years later. In Calcutta, these came up in 1909, but the college entrance exam started in 1857. So you go to a college, and in the college, you are not any science. The science is only taught to medical doctors in the medical schools. There are no science departments in the colleges to start with. So this is the reason why a medical doctor had to start an association for cultivation of science, so that young children, young students in schools and colleges can be inspired, okay, to pursue science or know what science is. And it's not, he, of course, there was one Father Lafont who was a Jesuit teacher in a college at Calcutta. So he used to give lectures in Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. Mahendralal Sarkar used to give lectures at the Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. And Sir J.C. Bose, who was born in 1958, he had graduated from the Presidency College, gone abroad, come back, and he had joined as a lecturer in Presidency College. 3 years down the line, Acharya Praful Chandra Ray, who had specialization in chemistry, he had also gone to England and come back. So there is a physicist, there is a chemist, there is a medical doctor, and then the Father Lafont. All these people used to give lectures for popularization of science at the Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. But Mahendralal Sarkar did not stop at that. He also raised money from Maharaja of Vijayanagaram and created a laboratory to do science experiments, okay, at Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. So you realize there is a lab which is not a part of any school curriculum or college curriculum and so on. Okay, he has provided a lab space, some instruments, some chemicals, some other facilities which are needed to do, say, experiments in physics, chemistry, or whatever, okay, at Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. So it is that laboratory of Indian Association of Cultivation of Science that C.V. Raman started to use as a civil servant to pursue his passion for science. So he started to carry out research at the laboratory of Indian Association of Cultivation of Science after office hours to do something innovating, something exciting, something new which could be published. So as the luck would have it, in 1904, Lord Curzon reorganized the governance of universities of India, and he brought out an act called Indian Universities Act, which applied to the then 5 universities of India. And he said the universities only conduct exams, universities do not promote any innovations. So universities produce graduates, okay, who are all the time looking for government jobs. University is not producing thinking graduates. So he said, no, the universities must have university departments, and university professors must do research themselves, and they must also engage young people into the research, so that by the time the young people graduate out of the university departments, these graduates are also thinking varieties, and they are not job seekers, but they should be job creators. Because British by that time didn't have enough jobs for all the graduates which are coming out of the colleges of India. So he says, no, we must have job creators amongst the young people of India. So this is the background in which the university departments are built up, and the Calcutta was fortunate to have a visionary vice chancellor from the year 1906 onwards. Justice Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, who was a mathematician himself, he actually wanted to be a mathematics professor. Long story. He had to leave his chosen profession of mathematics. He had written many wonderful papers in mathematics, mathematical physics. He was a master's in physics as well as mathematics from Calcutta University. But he drifted into the profession of his father, into the law, became a very successful lawyer, and eventually became a judge. He was a member of the governing body of the Calcutta University, and he was critical of many of the things that Lord Curzon was trying to do. Lord Curzon left India in 1905, and the new Viceroy of India, he appointed Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee as the Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University in 1906. So now Ashutosh Mukherjee wanted to make provisions for people to do innovative science while they are studying at the university departments. but there were no university departments and he had taken over. But the British did not give any money to create university departments, or even if they provided money, that money had lots of constraints, and Ashutosh Mukherjee was not willing to use that money at all. So he raised endowments from his rich lawyer friends. So he created chaired professorships, he created research associateships from the endowments he raised, and some 8 years down the line, he thought of creating the College of Science, which he started in 1914, and by 1916, Calcutta had a College of Science, for which he identified bright young people like Meghnad Saha, S.N. Bose, J.C. Ghosh, S.K. Mitra, S.K. Banerjee, all these young people who were toppers of physics, chemistry, mathematics from Calcutta University, and he picked up the brightest amongst them. And he enticed C.V. Raman to leave his civil service and accept a chaired professorship on behalf of Calcutta University and Indian Association of Cultivation of Science, and do full-time science, okay, while he is inspiring all these young people who have just finished their master's degree. So these young people were appointed as teachers and research associates. They were supposed to teach and also carry out research towards their PhD degree. Okay, and they were all paid by Ashutosh Mukherjee from the endowments that he had raised. So you see an NGO like Indian Association of Cultivation Science, okay, that is the nucleus of everything that you see in India relating to science. And I will describe you how everything is all originates from one place, namely the efforts of Ashutosh Mukherjee as a visionary Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University in the background of Indian Association of Cultivation of Science, having been created by a medical doctor. And as I told you, why medical doctor? Because science was taught only in the medical schools. It wasn't taught anywhere else. So by the time it is 1919, okay, the first batch of physics students who have been taught by bright young people who are researchers themselves under the supervision of C.V. Raman, a Pallit Professor of Physics, P.C. Ray, who was also a Pallit Professor of Chemistry. P.C. Ray had retired from the Presidency College by that time, but he was a Pallit Professor of Chemistry. So there is a Pallit Professor of Physics. There is also a Ghosh Professor of Mathematics. So there are these many chaired professors, and the students are now being taught by motivated researchers on behalf of Calcutta University. So Meghnad Saha was the first to complete his DSc degree in a period of just a year and a half. He wrote some 10 papers. Only one of them was a joint author with S.N. Bose, his classmate. Rest of them are all single author papers. And he is DSc by the year 1990. Okay. So other young people, S.K. Mitra also had obtained his PhD. There are other young people who were struggling with their PhD work. Not everybody could complete in 1 or 2 years' time. So the Ashutosh Mukherjee had by that time raised enough money, and he arranged for many of them to go to England to do their PhD. So there is this whole lot of bright young people who go from Calcutta to Lahore for doing a PhD, and Bhatnagar, Calcutta to London for the PhD, and Bhatnagar also has gone from Lahore to do a PhD. And at one time, 3 Indian students who all became great names in scientific research in India, okay, they were together as students of a professor of University College in London. So all 3 of them, okay, Bhatnagar returns to Banaras as a research professor, J.C. Ghosh, who succeeds C.V. Raman as a director of Indian Institute of Science many years later. He returns to Dhaka University. S.N. Bose also had moved from Calcutta to Dhaka University. And C.V. Raman's famous student, K.S. Krishnan, the first director of National Physical Laboratory in New Delhi, he also, after finishing his research with C.V. Raman, had gone to Dhaka University. So you see this center, and there'll be, centers of research in the universities. There is a Calcutta, there is a Dhaka. Meghnad Saha, who had finished his PhD in 1919, had gone to England and Germany. He came back. Ashutosh Mukherjee created another chair professor for him, Khera Professor of Physics in Calcutta. But Meghnad Saha wanted something more than what Ashutosh Mukherjee could provide for him. So the Allahabad University invited Meghnad Saha as a chair professor, and he went as a professor of physics and dean of sciences at Allahabad University. But Allahabad University already had few of the Calcutta professors. There was mathematician A.C. Banerjee, who was also there, and there was N.R. Dhar, a chemist N.R. Dhar, who had returned from England earlier than Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar. So Allahabad, they were all three. So the Allahabad was a center of science. Lahore is a center of science. Calcutta is a center of science. Dhaka is a center of science. BHU is a center of science. So this is how all these things are now, prospering. So as I told you, so the start of scientific research is nurturing of young people, nurturing of giving these young people an atmosphere and giving these young people as adequate or intelligent financial support so that the science can grow in India. So if all these steps had not been taken by Ashutosh Mukherjee or Mahendra Lal Sarkar, or C.V. Raman had not accidentally reached Calcutta and discovered IACS there, we wouldn't have had the great progress as a modern nation that India is today after 75 years of independence if these small steps had not got taken in Calcutta. So Bhatnagar, after Banaras, goes back to Lahore as a founder director of University Chemical Laboratories and builds a school of chemistry at Lahore. And Bhatnagar was a very innovative professor who used to raise money for his research by his own consultancy to the industrialists. He provided solutions for many industries, raised a huge amount of money, and all that money was used to support the research students. Because there was no scholarships in India at that time. Anybody who wants to do research, the professor only has to somehow arrange, or the student has to do a tuition or do some small-time job. But Nagar felt that just as these guys had done full-time research while they were PhD students in England, similar arrangement should be there, but the British has not made any such arrangements. Okay, all through the 1920s as well as on through the 1930s. British were only supporting the agricultural research. 2 agricultural research colleges were created at Pusa in Bihar and at Lalpur in Punjab. Lalpur was the place where new canals had been laid by the British civil servant, Mr. Lyle. So a new township. Before the Chandigarh came up as a modern urban area in independent India, British had created an urban area at the nucleus of new canals that they had laid, and that place was called Lalpur. Today it is called Faisalabad. So agricultural research was supported, as I told you, because agricultural income will support their economy in England. So Indian agricultural research body was created in 1920s, but for the scientific and industrial research, we have to wait till 1939. So coming back to promotion of you people are, in fact, even I should say I am also very lucky that people of my generation, we are born in independent India. And independent India, where promoting scientific temper is a part of our constitutional duty. Compulsion is there for the political leadership that the scientific temper has to be promoted. So we are lucky at the time of independence that we had leaders like Pandit Nehru, we had Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, who was the first boss of Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar in in independent India. And Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was the son of Ashutosh Mukherjee. So you see all these coincidences. So we have enlightened leadership at the time of Indian independence, and we are very lucky that as we have progressed into the 21st century, we had enlightened leadership starting from Vajpayee, who brought us to the 21st century, then enlightened leadership of another university professor as Dr. Manmohan Singh, and now we have the enlightened leadership of a statesman prime minister like Modi ji. So the agenda that was set by the scientists of India for the independent India, okay, is the one which we are following. And now let me explain to you why I am saying this is an agenda which was created by the scientists of India. So Bhatnagar, one more point is this thing. Bhatnagar actually was mentored by Ruchiram Sani, who had learned his talent of popularizing science from Indian Association of Cultivation of Science himself. Ruchiram Sani was a contemporary of Ashutosh Mukherjee. He did a chemistry MSc from Calcutta University after having done his initial graduation, etc. at Lahore. So Ruchiram Sani, when he went back to Punjab, he set up a Punjab Science Institute on the line of Indian Association of Cultivation of Science. And he used to give popular science lectures, okay, at schools, colleges. He used to go to villages and give popular science lectures. And he gave over 500 popular science lectures during his time. And the kind of lectures he used to give, okay, in 1880s and 1890s is, how does the telegraph wire speak? The common flame, the water Lahoris drank before 1880, pure and impure air, pollution. Even at that time, he was conscious of this thing. Water, then toys and their lessons, soap making, electroplating, electricity in the service of man, glass making, Punjab and its rivers. So these are the people who inspired the young students, okay, as the education agenda of India began. Then there are the scientists who inspired young students up to the Indian independence. People like Bhatnagar, Eknath Saha, J.C. Bose, Ashutosh Mukherjee, Bhabha, Birbal Sani, P.C. Mahan, and all. But as Bhatnagar became the director of Board of Scientific and Industrial Research, the first thing he did was he reached out to all the university professors, got them into the committees of the government, and a few years down the war, they knew that war would end and India would get independent one day or the other. So they started planning for how to reconstruct science and technology in India, how to do better technical education in India, how to have better medical research in India. So Meghnad Saha used to write a lot about it in a journal that he had created, Science and Culture. So Meghnad Saha moved from Allahabad to Calcutta back in 1938 and wrote series of articles, just drummed up. As the war came in, he drummed up more and more support amongst the Indian scientists that we have to do something for our country. Subhash Chandra Bose was 1 year junior to Meghnad Saha in the college. Bose became the president of the Indian National Congress in 1938, and Meghnad Saha convinced Bose that he should invite Pandit Nehru to be the chairman of a planning committee created on behalf of Indian National Congress, which would plan for things in independent India. Just see the foresight of Meghnad Saha. So it's the same Meghnad Saha okay, who reached out to his contemporary, namely J.C. Ghosh, who became the president of National Institute of Sciences in Calcutta. National Institute of Sciences is today the Indian National Science Academy. So during the presidentship of J.C. Ghosh, a contemporary of Meghnad Saha, a symposium was held in Calcutta where all the Indian scientists were there. Physicists, chemists, biologists, medical scientists, agricultural scientists, everybody was there. Zoological Survey of India, Geological Survey of India, everybody was there. These people at the end of it came out with a grand plan. What should happen in India when India will become independent? But now how to make it go forward? So Meghnad Saha came up with a clever plan. He figured it out that the Royal Society has a biological secretary, namely Professor A.V. Hill, who was a Nobel laureate, who actually started as a mathematician. He had his basic degree in mathematics and who had done wonderful things with the help of few mathematics friends to aid things in the First World War. Later on, he shifted from mathematics to biophysics, okay, to physiology, and he won in a matter of just 3 years. In 1922, he won the Nobel Prize for Physiology. So here was a physicist, mathematician, physicist, who had become a biologist and who had a great talent for organizing research. So Meghnad Saha and the Indian scientists asked the British government to invite A.V. Hill to India to listen to them and listen to their plans for reconstructing everything in India post-independence. So in 1940, K.S. Krishnan had got an FRS, and 41, Bhabha had become a fellow of the Royal Society, and in 43, Bhatnagar himself had become a fellow of the Royal Society. So Meghnad Saha moved Bhatnagar, because Bhatnagar was a part of the government, to make a proposal that let A.V. Hill be invited to India on some pretext. So A.V. Hill arrives in India carrying the register of the Royal Society, where these people will append their signature of having been elected the fellows of the Royal Society. So Hill brings this register, and these Indian scientists spend 4 months with A.V. Hill. He tours all across India. Bhatnagar takes him everywhere to India. He takes him to Calcutta, he takes him to Allahabad, he takes him to Bombay, he takes him to coastal region of India. So whatever they wanted, so A.V. Hill put in a report titled Scientific Research in India. Bhabha also consults him for creation of what should happen in Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, how should the atomic energy program be developed, etc., etc. So A.V. Hill was so enamored and so overwhelmed with this collection of bright Indian scientists who were scientists because of their passion. It was not that they were employed to do a job. They wanted to be scientists, and they were great scientists. So many of them FRSs and so on and so forth. So whatever they wanted, he wrote and gave a plan to Government of India, and that kick-started the agenda of independent India. So there was a educational advisor to Government of India by the name Mr. Sargent. So Sargent, with the help of Bhatnagar, Meghnad Saha, etc., wrote the education policy for in India, okay, which is which I call it education policy 1.0. So there is a Sargent plan how the education should happen. So A.V. Hill also said India doesn't have good technological institute. In fact, India had started with the technological institutions in the form of a College of Civil Engineering at Roorkee in 1847. But that college was created to lay down the Ganges canals and connect the Ganga canals with the Yamuna canals so that there is enough water for Western UP. The present day prosperity of Western UP and Haryana is because of creation of a Roorkee college, which produced overseers and so on, who helped in laying of these canals by the Bengal engineers. Okay, so you realize that British were doing things only which will promote their income back home. Okay, so there was no good technical education in India. The Roorkee started its graduation degree in engineering as late as 1928. Before that, there was no engineering degree given in India. The only institution which was giving engineering degree prior to 1928 was Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, which used to admit BSc students for a 3 years technical engineering program. So the people who already had a science degree in bachelor's degree in science were given an engineering degree after 3 years post BSc degree. So that was the only engineering degree given in India prior to Roorkee starting to give engineering degree from 1928 onwards. It is at that time only Roorkee started this competitive exam, which is like IIT entrance exam today, which you could write after the class 12. It was a 4 years engineering program started in 1928. Okay, so we didn't have good technical institutions in India, and A.V. Hill was very impressed with the MIT of America. So A.V. Hill wanted MIT like of institution in England, but there was none. So he wrote that India must have MIT like of institutions. So a Sarkar committee was appointed in 1946 to come out with a plan for IIT like institutions in India. He also said India must have a super specialty hospitals where the doctors do research. But Indian medical colleges were just producing doctors which will man the dispensaries. They were not exposed to science at all. So he said every medical college must have departments of basic medical sciences. There should be a department of biochemistry. There should be a department of microbiology. There should be a department of physiology. Doctors must be taught good modern science. This was not being done in India before 1946. Okay, the first medical, there were very few medical colleges which were giving degrees at that time. So A.V. Hill wrote, there should be an AIIMS-like institutions in India. There should be IITs in India. There should be a fisheries research institute in India, because we have such a huge coastline, and so many people live on the seafood, fish, this, that, and the river fish. There is so much of fish consumption in India. So he said there should be a fisheries research institution in India. He also felt that once there is an industrialization in India, income of Indians would rise. Once the income of Indians will rise, they will eat better food, they will have better nutrition, mortality rate will reduce. So if there is an industrialization of India, population growth in India will actually enhance for a short time before it decreases. So India will need more food also. So he says expand agricultural expand animal husbandry research. Okay, so he promoted there should be he says war will end. There will be civil aviation will emerge as a means of transport. So meteorology in India should be improved, because meteorology is needed to have better civil aviation. Meteorology is needed for agriculture, prediction of monsoon, this, that, and so on. So whatever he could think, or whatever the Indian scientists had fed him, because he was in India just for 4 months, and in the 4 months you cannot write such a exhaustive report entirely on your own. You have to be helped, or somebody has to articulate those things in a manner which is so convincing that an intelligent person should feel convinced. And A.V. Hill was convinced that after the war, India and England must have an equal partnership, because at that time there was still that India will be a part of a Commonwealth whose big brother will be England, and rest of them will be part of that a family in which big brother counts. But strength of the big brothers will be that the other brothers are also strong. So he wanted India to be prosperous. He wanted India to be strong. He had seen this Indian leadership, young scientists who had great ideas. So whatever they wanted, he put them in the report. And since this was a report from somebody who represents the Royal Society, he was also an MP for that matter at that time. So Meghnad Saha also becomes an MP after the Indian independence. So Meghnad Saha had identified the right person to get everything articulated for us. So Meghnad Saha, in a sense, is our A.V. Hill. So if England had an A.V. Hill, we also had an A.V. Hill in the form of Meghnad Saha. And we had a great visionary in the form of Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, who by personal example, okay, now created all the CSR, started to create all the CSR labs in India. When A.V. Hill was still touring India on February 29, 1944, 1 crore rupees was sanctioned by then British government to create 5 national labs in India. But Bhatnagar initially was thinking of a NPL in Delhi, an NCL in Pune with the help of Tata's, a metallurgical lab at Jamshedpur, again for better steel with the help of Tata's, a fuel research lab at Dhanbad so as to have better fuel for the production of steel, and a glass and ceramic research institute at Calcutta, because defense needs for lots of new materials, innovative material, required that kind of a research. So these are the first 5 labs, national labs of India, which Bhatnagar had got going. So Bhatnagar is also a member of that, the Nalini Ranjan Sarkar Committee, which gives the idea of having the IIT. So India becomes independent. Sargent is the Education Secretary of India. After a month, Bhatnagar becomes the first Indian Education Secretary of India. Okay, so Bhatnagar was working under 2 ministers, Maulana Azad as well as Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. India becomes a republic, okay, and Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, of course, leaves the government. He forms his own political party, and so on and so forth. But Bhatnagar, okay, after India becomes a republic, okay, Bhatnagar is now secretary to the 2 ministries. One to the Ministry of which controls the CSR, because CSR initially was a part of Ministry of Planning. Ministry of Planning also is an idea planted by Saha in A.V. Hill's head. A.V. Hill writes, so we had a Ministry of Planning and Development before independence India in 1945 itself. And the man who develops the 5-year plans after independence is none other than Mahanal Obis. Mahanal Obis was 1 year, again, Mahanal Obis was 1 year senior to Meghnad Saha at the Presidency College. So, and he had created the Indian Statistical Institution as a new set of institution which will research on statistics, operations research, applied mathematics. All these things had happened from 1930s onward. Baba creates an institute in Bombay, for which again he is helped by Bhatnagar via support from A.V. Hill, because A.V. Hill tells Bhatnagar fundamental science has to be supported. Because without fundamental science, you cannot have any science and technology. So everything is set. Right? The university's commission was set up initially in 1945, and then it is transformed into a University Education Commission headed by Radhakrishnan in 1948. And that gives the plan for creating a University Grants Commission. So A.V. Hill, Bhatnagar was not getting salaries equivalent to civil servants in pre-independent India. He had made that known to A.V. Hill. So A.V. Hill wrote a chapter also on how much should the scientists be paid. He said there should not be a gap between the equally qualified people in the civil service and that in the those doing scientific research. So all this is also put in. So few years down the line, Bhatnagar retires. Bhatnagar is made chairman of the University Grants Commission. He was a university professor to start with, from university professor to a professional, to a scientocrat, from scientocrat back as an education secretary, from education secretary to first year of the UGC, University Grants Commission. So first thing that Bhatnagar does is to increase the salaries of the college teachers all across India by 25%. Because Radhakrishnan had written in his commission's report in 1948 that university teachers must be paid well if they have to concentrate on research. University teachers must be provided time to think and also paid well, so that he doesn't have other material worries. If you want a good research out of people, this is the minimum that should be done. So Radhakrishnan also has a Calcutta pass, because Radhakrishnan's first professorship was a chaired professorship of philosophy at Calcutta, created by none other than Ashutosh Mukherjee. Later on, but Radhakrishnan was a vice chancellor at Voltaire, later a vice chancellor at Banaras Hindu University. But Radhakrishnan also was, a professor of philosophy in this mix of scientists of various hues and cries. Okay, put together You can call it a gang, you can call it a group, you can call it a band of visionary leaders, but this is what it is. And this is how the educational agenda of India begins. Okay. And there are good schools in India. Government starts to open good schools. Schools have now a proper board examinations. Schools are connected. The people, students graduate out, go to the universities. There are scholarship for students of all kinds. And so in 1960s, all good students in the school want to be either become an engineer or a doctor, or maybe some architects or civil servants. Nobody is wanting to do science. And the whole thing has been kick-started by the scientists. So the government of India, once they created National Council of NCERT, young students know about NCERT today because all textbooks are written by NCERT. Okay, so NCERT starts a National Science Talent Search scheme. In that scheme, some 350 odd students are selected every year all across India, and these students were promised a scholarship from BSc first year until PhD. Scholarship for 10 years. Okay, so if you get that scholarship for 10 years, you don't have to worry. If you just get a first division in every exam, you will get your scholarship, and a sumptuous scholarship for you to complete PhD degree. So this is a scheme that was launched in 1960s. I am myself a beneficiary of NSTS scheme, and that is how I could pursue my career as a scientist, even though my parents would not have wanted to be a scientist. But I pursued a career in science, joined Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which was set up by Homi Bhabha, where there were proper conditions of work and there was adequate financial support for anyone who came into the atomic energy program. Director NPL Dinesh Aswal, also after graduating from a university in India, joined the BRC training school, and this is how he has grown up and has been nurtured by independent India as a scientist. So that scheme ran for some 10-15 years. Then we had a new education policy in 1980s, and the NSTS scheme was made into an NTS scheme because many people were joining engineering, but they had a passion for science. So the government said, no. People can do engineering and then also can come back to science. Why deny them the scholarship? All good students who pass the talent search examination would get their scholarship. So the NSTS became an NTS scheme. That scheme ran in the 80s. Then the government of India came up at some stage, Kishore KVPY. KVPY scheme to identify young students from the school and nurture them for pursuit of science in good schools. We reach to the end of 20th century. By 20th century, appetite of Indians of being a part of the economy had been whetted. The personal computer had come into being. There has been a revolution in telecommunication. Information is spreading faster and smoother. There is a World Wide Web. So information is getting available to everyone. In between, we had the space program. Space program had launched satellites. The satellites were being used to permeate education all across the villages of India. We had another visionary person like Professor Yashpal, who headed the Space Applications Center in Ahmedabad and ran the satellite program. Later on, he was secretary of DST. He was also the chairman of UGC, and he came up with very innovative ideas how to promote better research in the Indian universities. And Yashpal was a great communicator. He had a great communication skills. Young people. There was a program, Turning Point, some 30 years ago. Every week, Yashpal would be there answering the questions of the public, from young students to housewives to general public, on various issues of science. So by the time we come to the end of the 20th century, okay, we had a better economy, and then the government of India thought of creating more IITs, more institutes of science education and research, and we had, for a period of about 8 to 10 years, a secretary of Department of Science and Technology, okay, Professor T. Ramaswamy. Professor T. Ramaswamy was himself an STS scholar in the year 1964, but he had joined engineering, so he had to lose that scholarship at that time. So when he is presiding over things in Delhi, like Ashutosh Mukherjee, he also wants to do things which he got denied when he was a young person. So he came up with this brilliant idea of Inspire. Inspire is, as you can, to arouse a curiosity to do something. So he called this as a Inspire scheme, and Inspire is innovation in science pursuit for innovation in research. Okay, so this is a big title of this, innovation in scientific pursuit for innovation in research. So this was launched in the year 2008 as an Inspire scheme. Prime Minister Manmohan committed money to it. After Modi ji came, this scheme has expanded in so many dimensions. Inspire scheme today has so many dimensions. Okay, all of you are aware. You are perhaps more aware than what I am aware. There are Inspire faculty, Inspire scholarship for school students. It's a multi-dimensional scheme today, Inspire scheme. And DST today is engaged in promoting science in a very, very big way. There are so many newer programs which get announced every year on behalf of DST and the present government. How to entice IIT engineers to pursue science for some years. So there are these, give the IIT engineers who want to pursue science, scientific research, double the scholarship that you give to a normal scholarship holder. If you get a 35,000 rupees scholarship to do PhD for science in a university. If an IIT engineer wants to pursue the same research in an IIT, he'll get double the scholarship so that he doesn't go and join the software company and gets demotivated to do research. So to engage the young people today, there are so many avenues that the government of India has created in the 21st century India. And today the India faces also so many challenges. That is why to attend to those challenges, there are all these calls, vocal for local, do more innovation. Okay, India should be self-reliant. India should be self-sufficient in all aspects, whether it is food, health, strategic needs, sophisticated needs. Okay, our interests, whether it comes to the defense of India in the form of having, powerful missiles, having powerful armored vehicles, having a very mobile army, an army which is defense forces which are aided by all kinds of sophisticated technology. We cannot today meet the challenge of China, which has gone ahead leaps and frogs in the last 30 years. We have to catch up, and we have the potential to catch up. Only if we can remain motivated, keep people motivated, be honest in our approach, and see that nobody who wants to pursue a passion, the society, the government, everybody must back up this national agenda. I can go on and on, but I guess I shall conclude now. I can see Dr. Dinesh hinting that my time is up. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to interact with all of you. And thank you very much.
You are mute. Reena, you unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Aswal, also for introducing the history of IISF. And thank you, Professor Grover, for giving us a glimpse or taking us on board on a boat ride towards the history in the history of science, right from pre-independence era to today. And I'm sure young people will be very much motivated to hear from him and will join the brigade to enjoy the joy of science. And with this, once again, I remind you that our aim is to have this event is to motivate you to join for registering the Science India International Science Festival, which we want you to register. And I'm leaving you with the links of glimpses of this thing. You can see the link here. Okay, this is the link. Please Book your dates, December 22 to December 25, 2020. Feel the joy of science. Register at the link given below, or you can just Google IISF 2020 and you will be guided to the link for joining the India International Science Festival. Thank you all. We look forward